JT Shaver here with New Layer, and in this video I'm going to compare 6 different dynamic broadcast style microphones ranging from $100 to $400. The first thing you'll notice is that I'm not using any of these mics for this video, that way it'll be as unbiased as possible. I'm just going to present the facts and give you some audio samples, and you'll have to choose which mic sounds the best to you regardless of the brand. There's a bunch of different mic styles out there, so why would you choose a dynamic microphone in the first place? Dynamic broadcast style microphones excel in a few areas. They're meant to be used up close and personal, so they'll record more of your voice and less of the ambient sounds that you don't want picked up. By comparison, if you're using a shotgun microphone, you might have it set up 18 inches away or so. With a setup like that, the difference in volume between your voice and outside noises is less, so when you amplify your voice, you're also amplifying those outside sounds. So the biggest benefit in my experience with dynamic microphones is that you don't have to worry as much about acoustically treating your room, whether or not you have loud roommates, or whether or not somebody's using a leaf blower next door for hours and hours and hours. This makes dynamic microphones suitable for podcasting or streaming or any kind of voiceover work as long as you don't care about your microphone showing up in the frame of your video. Some XLR microphones include things like built-in EQ or high-pass filters, while USB mics have features of their own. That might include RGB lighting or built-in preamps and digital signal processing, so a lot of those USB mics can be more portable if you need that. This of course is a trade-off because the preamps in most USB microphones are not as good as the preamps in an external audio interface. Another downside to USB mics is that it's oftentimes impossible or at least very hard to use more than one microphone at once. So if you wanted to host a multi-person podcast, for example, that could turn into a roadblock really quickly. There are some solutions out there for certain brands like the RODE Connect software, but that just adds another layer of complexity to your setup. Another really big benefit to USB microphones is that you can plug them directly into a tablet or a phone. This will drastically increase the production value of all your mobile content. So with all that said, what makes one microphone better than the next? Apart from any special features, different microphones just sound different, so I'm going to compare 6 different options here with both male and female vocals so you can decide what sounds best to you. You can skip ahead, but before we get into the audio comparisons, I want to talk about the pros and cons of each mic that stand out to me the most. Let's start off with an industry standard and the most expensive mic in this video, the Shure SM7B. The SM7B is $399, and something unique to this mic is how gain hungry it can be. A lot of audio interface preamps don't have enough gain to juice this mic up as much as it needs to be, so oftentimes you'll need a mic activator like the cloud lifter. A cloud lifter will boost the gain of the microphone by 25 decibels before it hits your audio interface. That way you have acceptable levels for recording. This would add another $149 to your setup, but keep in mind that not all audio interfaces would need this. I use the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 3rd Gen, and without a cloud lifter, I have to turn the preamp up all the way to get acceptable recording levels with the SM7B. My voice is pretty loud, but for example, my wife, who does audiobook narration, has a quieter voice and definitely needs a cloud lifter with this interface. On the back of this mic are 2 switches that turn on a high-pass filter and a mid-frequency boost, which are really helpful for live sound or whenever you can't apply these effects in software. Shure also surprisingly doesn't have their own branded boom arm, so you'll have to be okay using another third-party boom arm with this mic. I use the RODE PSA-1 Plus, and it's just kind of weird seeing a Shure mic on the end of a RODE boom arm, but whatever. I almost always see this mic with the smaller, lower profile pop filter on it, but it also comes with a bigger, thicker one, which I think works way better, and it also acts like a spacer, which gives you good spacing when you're speaking into this mic. Overall, there's a reason this mic is an industry standard. It's well built, sounds good out of the box, and has everything you need built in for live sound or recording. Next up is the Procaster, which is RODE's kind of mid-range dynamic broadcast mic. The Procaster goes for $229, although I have seen it on sale as low as about $175-ish. It's built like a tank and is about as straightforward as it gets. It doesn't come with any kind of external pop filter, although you can buy one separately for about $20, which I highly recommend. There's really nothing else to say about this mic from a functionality standpoint. It's just a no-frills microphone with a really great sound. Another really popular option is the smaller, less expensive PodMic, which is also from Rode and goes for about $99. The internal windscreen on the PodMic seems a little more effective than most internal pop filters, so you may not need anything external to use this mic. Like its bigger brother, it also doesn't have any kind of built-in EQ or filters. The mounting yoke also has a dual thread inside, so you don't need any kind of adapter to mount it to a boom arm or a mic stand, which is really good because those things are super annoying because they get stuck all the time. The size and price of this mic are the main selling points, but you'll have to see if you can pick it out in the blind audio comparison later. The last XLR-only microphone in this video is one you may not really have heard of in the BOYA BYDM500. This mic is geared as a competitor to the Rode PodMic and is a whopping 99 cents more expensive. BOYA is owned by Saramonic, who has a really long history in microphones, and every product of theirs I've tested so far has been really great. This mic really has no special features built in, but it does come with an external windscreen, which kind of makes it look more like the Shure SM7B. This one also features dual threads, so you don't need any mounting adapters. This is a really simple mic, but if it sounds the best to you, I have no hesitation recommending it because it sounds good on my voice too. The first USB mic on this list is the Deity VO-7U. This thing costs $169 for the mic only, or $199 for a kit with a boom arm and an external pop filter. I wish the kit without the boom arm also came with the external pop filter, but it does have a second internal filter, so that might not even be necessary. The thicker windscreen that comes with the SM7B also fits on this mic and does a really good job of spacing you where you need to be and stopping plosives. That's kind of a theme within this video, is a lot of these external pop filters are interchangeable with other mics, so if you have one laying around, chances are that it works. This microphone is USB-C only, so there's no way to plug it into an existing audio interface, but again, that means you can take it with you and use it with your mobile devices. It has some cool RGB lighting effects, as well as a dedicated quick mute button. It does have an output for headphone monitoring, as well as a little mini tripod, which I don't really find all that useful. It doesn't boom out at all, and if you stick it on a desk or a table, it doesn't really reach your mouth. It does, however, make a really great handle if you want to hold your mic for a podcast or something, which I do see a lot of people doing nowadays, so it kind of depends on your workflow. This mic also has dual threads, so you don't need an adapter for most mic stands or boom arms, but funny enough, the mini tripod that it comes with has 1/4-inch threads, so you need an adapter for that one. Last, but certainly not least, is the only XLR and USB-C mic in this list, the Maono PD400X. This mic sells for $130 to $150 and has XLR and USB inputs, so you get the best of both worlds. This makes it a good choice if you have a permanent at-home setup, but you also want the option of taking your mic with you on the road and not having to buy multiple mics. This mic has a single multi-function knob, so it's a little bit cleaner of a design, but you still have full control over everything. It also has a dedicated touchpad for muting it, and it turns red when it's muted and green when it's active. When you're using this mic traditionally in XLR mode, none of the lights or onboard controls do anything, so just keep that in mind. When you're using the PD400X in USB mode, you also get access to the Maono Link software, which gives you things like a compressor, equalizer, and more. Of course, as a USB mic, this is also compatible with mobile devices as well. Now that you've seen all these mics, let's get to the most important part and hear what they sound like. I'm going to play some blind audio samples with both male and female voices so you can compare them fairly. All these audio recordings are totally unedited apart from some volume normalization. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features.
Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features. Peter Parker picked the perfect podcast microphone because it was packed with features.
So did you write down your favorites? Here's what you just listened to, and I may have tricked you because I just played them back in the same order I introduced them in this video. A was the Shure SM7B, B was the RODE Procaster, C was the RODE PodMic, D was the BOYA BY-DM500, E was the Deity VO-7U, F was the Maono PD400X in traditional XLR mode, which uses the preamps in the external audio interface. So what do you think? Pause the video real quick and leave a comment and let me know what you think sounded the best and why. Now that you've heard them, there are a few things that stand out to me personally, so I figured I'd share them now. The Shure SM7B can sound a little bit muddy straight out of the box, but like I said earlier, it does have a built-in high pass as well as an equalizer, and I think that makes it sound a little bit better for live recordings. Or if you have the Focusrite audio interface like me, Air mode is a really good pairing for this mic because it'll boost some of those mid and high-end frequencies. I also noticed the SM7B cuts down on the S sounds a lot, which can sound a little bit unnatural, but it does save you some time in post having to de-S your audio. The RODE Procaster has a similar but flatter and slightly more natural sound compared to that microphone, which a lot of people like for EQing in post. The RODE PodMic seems to have a lot more mid and upper presence, and almost sounds like it has a compressor built in, which it doesn't, but a lot of people might like that sound if you want that straight out of the box. The BOYA BY-DM500 needed less preamp gain than most other mics, and sounded the bassiest out of them all to me. It still had good mid and high presence, and was a good fit for my voice without sounding muddy at all. The Deity VO-7U has a really distinct sound like most other Deity mics in my opinion, so it's kind of hit or miss whether you like that or not. It's kind of flat to me and is lacking the really low and really high ends, but some people might like that for EQing later. In XLR mode, the Maono PD400X has a really good low and high end, and a really smooth sounding mid-range. The clarity and presence is also there, and it's one of my favorite sounding mics straight out of the box. I'm not going to cover all the settings in this video, but you can set the tone of this mic to deep, bright, natural, and legacy. All the tone modes, including legacy and natural, don't sound exactly the same as this mic does in XLR mode. Bottom line, there's a lot of flexibility with this mic, and I think it can match a lot of different voices with simple changes in the software. One final thing to note is that the PD400X can handle much louder sounds in XLR mode versus USB mode. That's because this mic starts applying a hardware limiter behind the scenes, and there's nothing you can do about it. You basically have to be yelling for it to take effect, but I figured I'd mention it because if you're a gamer and you want your cries of agony to be heard loud and clear, it's something to consider. I also want to give a shout out to the RODE PSA-1 Plus boom arm, which you've seen in this video. I've used a lot of different boom arms and I always come back to this one, and the cheap ones are just never worth it. Somewhere around $100 may seem steep for something like a boom arm, but it's something I wish I splurged for way back when. Overall, I know this is a pretty base comparison of these mics, and I don't cover everything like proximity effect and off-axis rejection and stuff like that. I also know there might be some mics that are not included here that you might want to hear, but I don't have those, so if you want to see something else, leave a comment and let me know. Links are in the description if you want to check out any of these mics further. That's it for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.